Hi, I'm Carl Radford. I'm a registered piano technician and a pianist, and I would like to play for you Rachmaninoff's Prelude in G sharp minor. Now, normally you'll hear this piece played on a modern type of tuning called equal temperament, but I am going to play it in a classical type of tuning that I've tuned my piano to called well temperament. Now, why would I do such a thing? You would think that Rachmaninoff, being a late Romantic era composer, would have used a modern tuning. Some might even say that he's an early modern era composer. And the modern tuning was around by that point. Came about into being in the early 20th century, and that's about the same time that Rachmaninoff was writing most of his major compositions. So it's quite natural to think that he would have been a modern composer in terms of the tuning. However, I'm pretty convinced that he probably used some sort of well temperament. We don't really know what kind, but he probably did. And the reason I think that, first of all, it makes a lot of musical sense. When you listen to it, it just all kind of clicks in and makes sense. But also, he loved to write in the extreme keys with a lot of sharps and flats. So, for example, this piece that I'm about to play has 5 sharps. And that's hard to play on a lot of sharps. Pianists generally don't like to play with a lot of sharps and flats if you can avoid it. It's a lot easier to play without all the accidentals in keys that are simpler. So why would he write in something like G sharp minor with 5 sharps when he could easily just go up a half a step and write it in A minor? It's going to sound exactly the same. It's going to sound slightly higher, but no, most people are not going to notice that difference. But in the modern tuning, all the keys are exactly alike, so why bother with all these sharps? Well, in this tuning, however, in the classical tuning, there's a huge difference between A minor and G sharp minor. A minor is very still and very quiet and very placid, whereas this key, this G sharp minor key, is very vibrant, very, very quick, and very, very jittery almost, very agitated. And I think Rachmaninoff wanted to use that quality. Now, most concert pianists you hear in performance and recordings today on the modern tuning, that vibrancy isn't there naturally in the modern tuning, and so they'll tend to play very fast to compensate for that. And so you'll typically hear this piece played extremely quickly. But if you slow it down a little bit in this tuning, and listen to all the amazing little things that happen. A lot of nuances and little surprises pop out that you didn't know were necessarily there until you really listen for it in this kind of tuning. It's very exciting. Now, what I'm talking about by vibrancy, what do I mean by that? Well, let me show you. So in the beginning part here, you have this. Now, I don't know if you can hear that. Easier to hear an octave lower, but that's very, very quick, this first interval. The vibrations in between the notes, really, really fast, and then really still. And it gives it a rhythm of its own. It gives it its own tempo, so to speak. It's go. And that's not by accident. He wrote that either, we don't know if he did it consciously or subconsciously. Most composers aren't listening for beats, listening for vibrations when they're composing. They have their pianos tuned a certain way, and they go with whatever they're subconsciously hearing. And I'm sure that's probably what happens here. But he used that. Another example is later in the piece, he goes... Same thing happens here. Still, 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 agitated, still, 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 agitated, and that gives it that almost like a pulse on its own, and that makes it very exciting, very, very vibrant, and so this wasn't an accident. And it really comes out in this kind of tuning. So I hope you can hear that. Now, I could talk about this all day long, and you still wouldn't know what I'm talking about. You might intellectually understand it, but you don't really know what I'm talking about until you hear it. So, without further ado, I'm going to play for you Sergei Rachmaninoff's Prelude in G sharp minor. So thank you for listening, and keep in tune.